Welcome to this week's episode of the Lido Loop. I'm your host, Jack McCraw. With me, as always, my good friend and also broke buddy, because we just went to the casino, Jesse Barboza. How are you feeling after getting cleaned out of the casino?
It wasn't real cleaned out. Just down a little bit of money, not too much, but yeah, we definitely had fun playing blackjack together for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It was Jesse and your family. Everyone was having a good time until we started losing money, and it kind of made us miss being on a cruise ship and gambling in the casinos there. But speaking of cruises, what's in the cruise news for today?
Yeah, so it looks like Carnival's going to be expanding their adult sailings, and Tracy on Forge looks like it's going to be closed from major cruise lines, and Carnival has almost booked all their sailings for this year.
Yeah, can't wait to get talking about that latest and greatest in the Carnival news. And on the theme park side of things, Magic Kingdom will be opening all of their rides here very soon for the first time in what seems to be forever. Dollywood has announced discounted tickets for a bunch of different people who qualify, although they have already angered a lot of fans with certain refill policies. And of course, the late great Six Flags America has been bought by a certain famous NBA player. That, and then we break down part 4 of Let's Go on a Cruise, where we talk about what to do on board and the disembarkation process. That and much more on this week's episode of The Lido Loop. So kicking off the show, we are going to talk about the latest and greatest in the cruise world. And starting off today, Jesse, let's talk about Carnival's expansion to its adults-only sailing.
Yeah, so Carnival now have canceled their sailings from October to later this year for all, which is equivalent to 11 sailings, and now they have to replace those to adult sailings on the Carnival Frenzy, which is coming out of Long Beach in California. So apparently, what a lot of people are upset about is that they booked these with their family and they expect to go on these cruises, and then they end up canceling it, and then they end up remaking these bookings into adult-only sailings. Carnival is definitely focusing on adult entertainment and stuff like different shows. There's some stuff that a lot of people think is definitely controversial, like they're supposed to be expanding, like having drag shows on board and stuff like that. Whether you like it or not, I guess some people do like that. Sailings are invite only, so I'm guessing that they're mainly inviting like casino players and stuff like that. They're probably getting them on board almost for free, so that they can start gambling and stuff like that. I'm sure they're going to expand. I've seen some past adult-only sailings, and they're like in the main atrium. They've actually put slot machines in there in order to have enough slots. Because I mean, if you have adult-only sailings, what do you think the casino would look like?
It would be huge, massive, bigger than your current casino. So I understand why they want to put more slot machines like in the atrium in the lobby, like you mentioned. And it kind of makes me think of Vegas. I think it's the Red Rocks. They have a swim up bar where you can play blackjack and order a drink. Maybe they could have something like that, except it's the Tides bar. Just have a blackjack dealer come up to the hot tubs and have you then play blackjack with you. That sounds like fun.
Yeah. So apparently a lot of people are looking forward to this, and some people are upset because they got their cruise ship canceled. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes, though.
I mean, if I did have something previously booked with a family, I would be a little upset too. I mean, hopefully they got some credit, or maybe they can use this for a different sailing. It would feel weird that Carnival would want to kick these people out instead of just starting a brand new ship and say, hey, this is going to be the adults only cruise. Maybe that cruise wasn't doing too well, and the amount of people that kicked off wasn't necessarily a lot by comparison. But I mean, there is certainly a lot of online chatter in regards to these families being booted off this ship. Another cruise topic we want to get to is the closure of the Tracy Fjord in Alaska. Now, this is a very popular cruising destination for Alaskan cruise ships, Jesse. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? And do you think this will impact some people's sailings in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. So anyone that goes to Alaska, this is one of those inside passages that you want to go to, because it has beautiful landscape and all that. Me personally have not seen it. This is definitely on my bucket list to go to. But back in 2025 of August, actually, there was a huge landslide that created like a huge tsunami type wave, and pretty much the water. I saw a picture of this, and the water went way up high in the mountain, and they're right now scientists and like the U.S. Geological Survey, they say that it is very unstable. There's still ongoing risk of like rock falls, more landslides, and another localized tsunami could happen for sure. So cruise lines like Carnival, Royal Caribbean, Holland America, they have completely cut it out of their itinerary for all of 2026. They're saying that it's not safe for large ships to transit right now. To me, it seems like with all the landslide and stuff like that, they don't know how. I don't know if they know exactly how deep it is too. Like if it's too shallow because of all the rocks that have fallen down into it. So I'm thinking that they're trying to play it safe this year, and the next year they'll see if it will be back open, because they may have to do some work in order to get it back open too.
Yeah, and I know that there are certain people online that say that this is one of the best parts of an Alaskan cruise. You know, me, like you said, I personally have never been on an Alaskan cruise either, but I feel like there's definitely a lot of other things to do on those ships besides that particular fjord. Now, yeah, it's like if you went on a Carnival ship and, like, you know, when we went on, we were supposed to go to Progresso. We didn't end up going to Progresso. We just stayed in Cozumel an extra day because there was a hurricane in the Gulf. But you know, I imagine that this will disappoint some people, but I think that there's still a good amount of other places to visit and see in Alaska. I mean, go whale watching. I think that's probably the number one thing to do on an Alaskan cruise. But yeah, certainly people will be upset and disappointed with this, but it's for a good reason, and it's for the safety not only of the people, but of the natural landscape itself. So switching back to Carnival, Jesse, I hear that Carnival has an 85% booking rate between now and the end of the year. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct, and that's in the cruise industry. That is crazy, because just think about it. It is April right now, and a lot of people will book their cruise. A lot of people book their cruise last minute. So considering that 85% of the bookings are completely sold out right now is ridiculous. So, but me personally, I think it's definitely an artificial inflation, because of course a lot of people know about Carnival changing their VIFP program. Instead of it being a rewards program, it's a like paid for rewards program, I guess. So whoever pays the most, you get better rewards and all that, which whether you like it or not, I'm definitely disagree with this. I think it's going to hurt them. And a lot of people say, well, it's not hurting them because hey, they got 85% of the bookings, but I think it's artificial inflation, because I'm constantly getting emails and all that saying, hey, book this cruise, you get 3x points so you can get closer to the platinum or the gold status, so that you're not gold status, platinum or diamond status, so you're locked in, so they won't change your status for lifetime. Because right now, if you're diamond for life, and a lot of people are working towards that goal. So I think it's definitely going to affect them later.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, is that instead of seeing the numbers affected this year, do you think that would carry over into 2027, where we could see people turning away from Carnival and going to other ships like MSC, Royal, or whomever, just because of the bad, rewards that Carnival is offering now?
Yeah, I definitely can see that, and I can definitely see Carnival starting to trying to figure out something else that they're going to do. They're probably going to be like, hey, we'll push it back even more, because originally it was supposed to be end of July. Then they pushed it back to beginning of September pretty much. So they keep pushing it back. You never know. They may even push it back till next year, and then I feel like they're just trying to get as much money out of this as they can right now, and then next year they'll find another way to make more money.
I was going to say, like, the easiest way is make the cruises cheaper, but, with rising costs of everything, that might not be the most feasible option. It was really interesting to see what Carnival will do, especially with its consumer base, not only this year, but the following year, because, they have not been very popular online right now, and certainly when that rewards program actually finally does hit, only time will tell what it will do to their overall business.
Yeah, so switching over to theme park news, Jack. So is this the first time Magic Kingdom has all the rides open?
It feels like it, yes. For you who have been listening to our last couple shows, we have talked about how a lot of Disneyland rides will be closed starting in May, and I think we did the percentage. It was like 14% of all Disneyland rides are going to be closed at some point this summer, which that's terrible. Magic Kingdom has the opposite, not issue, but good thing where every single ride will be open. Now, at some point, the Carousel of Progress will be closing in 2026 for a refurbishment opening in 2027, but the two main rides that were closed, Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin, opened on April 8th, and then they announced that Big Thunder Mountain will open on May 3rd with enhanced features, including more special effects, a new ride track to make it a little bit smoother. And I would say it's one of, if not the best coasters in Magic Kingdom besides Tron and Space Mountain. So it's certainly a great people pleaser, and the Magic Kingdom is now operating at 100% capacity, and with the new Cars Land potentially opening in 2027 or more likely 2028, and then the Villains Land opening in sometime after 2029, Magic Kingdom is clicking on all cylinders, and now is the best time to visit a park. Jesse, wouldn't this make you excited if you knew every single ride you wanted to ride was going to be open?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'm definitely big on not parks being super busy where you can only ride a couple rides and you're waiting in hot lines all day. If the more rides are open, that means the lesser the lines are going to be for sure, right?
Absolutely. And yeah, like I was saying in previous episodes, my last trip to Disney World, we were able to ride most things with a little to no wait. With Big Thunder Mountain and now Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin open, these will alleviate that crowd capacity just in time for the summertime. And now that Disney is offering these discounted tickets this summer, like the half-day passes, I think Disney is getting their staff back up. I think Disney is making sure these rides are in good shape, because I think that they expect a record-breaking crowd this year.
So talking about discounted tickets, how about Dollywood offering discount tickets?
So this is the first time that we have talked about Dollywood on our podcast, and it's been one of my bucket list parks. There just hasn't really been a lot of Dollywood news to talk about, but they're in the news right now because they're offering $59 tickets for those who qualify, and those who do qualify include first responders, military members, teachers, government employees, and medical employees. Currently, an average ticket to Dollywood costs around $94.99. That's, a pretty steep price to pay for Dollywood, considering Six Flags is usually around $50 for a day pass, depending on the park. Season pass, $70 there. SeaWorld, Busch Gardens, somewhere between $70 to $90 a day. So Dollywood is more expensive than almost every other park besides Universal and Disney. And, it is a very nice themed park. It's always been rated as one of the top 5 most beautiful parks. Dolly herself and then, the Herschend Company do a very good job maintaining it and making it a worthwhile destination, especially in the, Tennessee mountains. Pigeon Forge is a great, fun place to visit for a lot of families that live in that area. So I understand wanting to give the customers a little bit more of a value to come in and, check out their parks, because it is a world-class park that is worth at least visiting one time in your lifetime. Unlike a certain Six Flags park we visited a few years ago, right, Jesse?
Yeah, definitely. So Six Flags of America, which has now been bought by a NBA player, and it's definitely not Shaq this time.
Well, he's a little busy. He's, has a Shaq's Big Chicken that's on, the Carnival Jubilee.
And he definitely got his money in his hand in everything, it seems like, at this
If
time.
you go on TV, you can see Shaq in some kind of commercial. That's a drinking game. Watch a show until you see Shaq on a commercial. But no, the NBA player in question who purchased Six Flags America is Kevin Durant. Now, it seems kind of odd, us being in Houston, we know him as a Houston Rocket, and he used to play on Oklahoma City Thunder, Golden State Warriors, Brooklyn Nets, Phoenix Suns. What in the world does Kevin Durant have to do with Six Flags America, you ask? Well, he is a D.C. native and a Prince George County native, so I'm sure he grew up going to Six Flags America. So the story goes, Kevin Durant and his investment group, 35 Ventures, as part of a group, has purchased Six Flags America site, and they plan to turn it into some sort of mixed use development. What that entails is yet to be determined, and also didn't say how much money they spent to acquire this land. But it seems to me that they want to put a little bit investment back into that area, and it kind of made Jesse and I reminisce about our let's just say fun time at Six Flags America. What was your favorite part of visiting Six Flags America, sir?
It's probably the leaving part. No, honestly, that park was definitely doomed. As soon as we went through there, we realized that was by far the worst Six Flags park that had to be out there.
I mean, when we were watching videos on it, it looked like there was a lot of fun. They had, the Superman Ride of Steel, which, was by far and away their best roller coaster. When we walked in, we saw the nice theming to, colonial America. But once you got past that park, it became just your typical Six Flags, a DC area, Looney Tunes area, and some pretty bad roller coasters. There was one, Roar, the first wooden roller coaster we rode, and that was the roughest, toughest, worst roller coaster I think we've ever been on.
Yeah, I think that roller coaster set the bar, because honestly, that was by far the worst one. So Superman definitely was way better compared. That was I agree with you, Jack. The Superman was definitely the best coaster there for sure. But what kind of made me think is, like, how many of these rides do you think will be saved towards this new adventure that Kevin Durant's going to be opening?
To be honest, I'm not too sure, because their latest investment they got was in their water park. They haven't actually gotten a new roller coaster in nearly a decade, so these coasters are just getting older and older. Like the Ride of Steel that we mentioned earlier opened, I believe, in 2000. So at that point, the roller coaster is over 25 years old, and most roller coasters' life cycles without significant work is about 20 to 25 years. So it's possible these rides just get scrapped, and maybe they use some sort of this land for some sporting complex, or maybe it's just, shopping center. The Six Flags America really was just kind of in the middle of nowhere. We had to go out of our way from the Baltimore area to get there, and it was still like 30 minutes east of DC. I remember it was really close to the Washington Commanders football stadium, and that's something that could be considered if the Commanders don't get their new stadium built in Washington, D.C., like they want to. They could go to this land, but it's kind of, I don't know what they would do with this land, to be honest, but it's certainly something to watch. And it's sad to see a theme park go, especially if you grew up in the D.C. area that was the closest and, quote, best theme park near you. But, hopefully something good will come about this. And, transitioning to the final topic of the show is let's go on a cruise. This is part 4 of our series, where Jesse and I will talk about what to do when on board. It includes food, drinks, certain ports, and of course the entertainment and the least favorite part of a cruise ship, which is the disembarkation process. But let's talk about our favorite part about cruises, besides casinos, is the food. So what is the cost for food once you're on a ship, Jesse?
Yeah, so I've definitely seen many people post in like Facebook groups saying, hey, what is the cost to eat on board at the restaurants on board and all that? And to be honest, most of them is all included in the original fare. I mean, yes, there are going to be special dining, like on Carnival, they got the 555 Steakhouse, and then they got like Rudy Sea Grill, and then they got different other places that may be extra, but you can literally go on a whole cruise ship and not spend a penny after their initial cost and still have a blast. You have all your food in the main dining room, which is 100% included. And you can also go to the buffet. And that's one thing I do like about Carnival, especially in the newer ships. There's so many places to eat that are included. Like on the Jubilee, there's got, Shaq's Big Chicken. They got Guy's Burger. They got Street Eats. They have, of course, the main dining room. They got Blue Iguana. They have Fresh Creations. And then, of course, the buffet. And there are so many places to eat. So that's one thing you will not do on a cruise ship. You will not starve on a cruise ship at all.
I was going to say, I think there's plenty of places for you to go eat. And even if you're not a big fan of the dining, which I don't know why you would be, but you could be, there's plenty of buffets to choose from. And another question we have is food available all the time?
Yeah, for the most part, it is. So a lot of times pizza is open a long time. I know on Carnival, in MSC they have it open really late. The buffet's open on MSC. The buffet is open except for like 2 or 3 hours. So basically all the time you can eat there. On Carnival they do like close the buffet and like the pizza place around midnight. But then they open what they call the late night buffet, which I'm not going to lie, the food does not look appetizing at all.
Because it's the leftovers throughout the rest of the day that they have to throw away otherwise.
That's what it seems like. And me personally, the pizza that is there is like deep dish, and I don't know about you, I don't like deep dish at all.
Unless it's actually from a Chicago deep dish pizza place, I don't want it.
Yeah, it's like almost like cafeteria squares, like you would get like in a cafeteria. So it's definitely not that great. But yeah, there's definitely like the type of food you would expect on board. Like, some of it is very fast casual, like burgers, hot dogs and stuff like that. Buffet, you can kind of find anything. Honestly, the dining experience is actually I don't know. What would you call it? It would be kind of like, I wouldn't say necessarily fine dining, but it's definitely nicer than like if you just went to like any old restaurant, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's nothing to say that you can't call it fine dining, because if you really think about it, you can get a gourmet steak or a freshly prepared chicken every single night that you're on board. And then, of course, there's a rotating menu of stuff that would otherwise be incredibly expensive on land, like escargot or frog's legs. So, yes, the dining experience is fine dining, in my opinion. And, kind of going to what I was talking about earlier with unique items at the dining, what other kind of food would you expect on board, Jesse?
Yeah, it's going to be like very international food, So I know like how Carnival does it is like a lot of times they do pork focus. So if you're just now leaving Cozumel, they'll have like, I guess, Mexican themed meals and stuff like that. And they do have the standard like steak every single night. You can get a steak every single night if you want to. Me personally, if there's nothing on the menu, that's my go-to is a steak. Because I don't know what it is, but the steak in the main dining room is actually pretty good.
And they'll cook it however you want it.
Yeah, exactly. I always get the Caesar salad. I don't know why, but the Caesar salad on the cruise ship, it was on Carnival is really good, and MSC it was amazing. It was way better on MSC, and I thought Carnival was the best. So
one thing to note about the salad, they actually put a good amount of croutons on there, and if I want a salad, I want a lot of croutons. I've been croutoned out by many, many restaurants. Texas Roadhouse.
Yeah, as long as they don't fall to the bottom, I think we're good.
Honestly, I hate when that happens too, because it gets messed up with the Caesar dressing. But on another note, what other things could people expect to eat there that's not fine dining? Like, what could you expect to see at the buffet or certain other restaurants that are on board?
Yeah, so the buffet is kind of rotational. I know Carnival, me personally, I think a Carnival buffet is not good at all. MSC's definitely they rotate it out, and MSC, they definitely have like a theme night every single night. So they have like a main special, I guess you can say. Like one night they had a lamb leg, and they literally had a huge leg, a lamb, and they were just cutting it off. And I think they had prime rib one night, and they were freshly cut. They'll cut it for you, and then put it on your plate immediately. It's definitely, MSC's buffet is way better than Carnival's. But Carnival definitely has a lot more places to eat, and like burgers, they have hot dogs, or they have the Blue Iguana Cantina where you get tacos and burritos, Shaq's Big Chicken. So it's literally pretty much everything you can think of they're going to have on that ship. My favorite, especially late night, pizza. I love getting the pizza there. I don't know, what do you think?
So I used to despise the pizza, and I compared it to school cafeteria pizza, but they got significantly better over the years, because even when we went on the Breeze in 24, the pizza was cardboard. But the last one we went on the Glory, that pizza was phenomenal. It was night and day for how much that pizza has improved. Maybe not being open 24 hours, but they use better ingredients, better quality, and I would say that the pizza is, worthwhile, especially the chicken Alfredo pizza. Definitely a recommend if you go to the Pizza Pirate on Carnival. But we can go on and on about the food. Let's talk about the drinks. So where are the best places to get drinks on the ship?
Yeah, so there are many bars. There's not going to be a short supply of bars on a cruise ship. I know on Carnival, pretty much every corner you turn, there's another bar. Depends on what you like too, of course. If you're by the pool, there are going to be servers that are walking around, or you just hang up at the bar. Typically, depending on what area you are at, there's got a theme menu, and there's usually all the I guess that bar specialty drinks. I guess those are the main drinks that bar is known for, or that you can order. Doesn't mean you can't still order your whiskey and cokes or your cranberry vodka or whatever type of drinks you want, but they typically like specialize in a certain amount of drinks at special bars. So, and you'll kind of learn the bartenders and how they work, because some of the bartenders, they kind of do this like rotational bar service where they'll be working on one bar and then they work on the inside bar too. So you'll see one, and then there's a couple times we'll be hanging out with this one bartender, talking and having good conversations. Like, oh, I gotta go to another bar, so we'll go over there and then have a good conversation with the bartenders, because it's very entertaining. Because all these people, I know we haven't really talked about this, but all the people on a cruise ship are like from, almost all of them are non-American. They're almost all from international countries. And I know Carnival, they have a name tag like what country they're from, and which is really cool. And it's really cool to understand their culture and how they talk, and it's very cool interacting with them and learning about their families and stuff like that. And honestly, I think the best spot to learn about people is the bar, me personally.
And also, I think it depends on what time of day you go to these bars, because if you go kind of during the daytime, especially if the weather's nice, the Tides bar will definitely be packed, especially closer by the pool. And also, if it's, especially if a day that you disembark and go to a, different port, it'll be vacant, or you can have easy service if you just want to stay on board the ship. But late at night, the casino bar is packed to the brim. Any of the interior bars, I think the Alchemy bar is very popular. They have special events that happen over there on ships as well. Of course, the club bar is always going to be popping, especially after midnight. So depends on the time you go, but like Jesse, you were saying earlier, there is not a single area where you don't have access to get alcohol, especially if you have the drink package. I think they really want you to utilize it. The one place I think they could use, a bar is in the theater. You have to, go far away to the casino, get a bar, then go to the theater. Why don't they make it closer? Have bartenders actually, give you beers inside the theater shows?
Yeah, it depends on like the ship, honestly, because when we were on Jubilee, the main atrium is actually a bar too. I mean, not a bar, a theater. So there were people asking drinks while we're there. And then also MSC is the same thing. When we went to a show, they were actually offering drinks and stuff like that. So I guess it kind of just depends on the ship and it depends on the bar. But like I said, you can still get pretty much any drink you want. One thing I learned that with a drink package is, so how it works is every time you order like a margarita, they're going to use like bottom shelf tequila. You can get the more premium tequila and it'll still fall on your drink package. Like instead of ordering just saying a margarita, I say, I want a Patron margarita, and they'll have Patron, and which is a lot higher quality tequila, and it tastes way better. That's like the only margaritas I'll drink nowadays.
And it avoids the headache for sure, especially drinking that bottom shelf one. Let's go ahead and transition over to ports. So, a big question people have is about tendering. Can you explain how tendering works?
Yeah, so some of these ports, they actually, it's too shallow for them to actually dock at an individual dock because of either like coral reefs or something like that, or it's just too low that it hasn't been like cleaned out so that you can actually dock there. So what the ships have to do is they have to go offshore. It could be a mile, it could be less than that. And they have to anchor, literally actually set their anchor down, and then they usually get some a trolley type boat, I guess you can say, that will load people on. I've even seen them use their rescue boats to get people on shore, but that just takes a lot longer. So it's usually they got specific boats going in. And actually, our next cruise on the Jubilee this September, one of the ports is Half Moon Cay. Or Key, however, I don't know. Everyone wants to call it either Key or K, but it's actually a tender port, and so that's another experience that we have. We also did a tender port, and I think it was in the Cayman Islands when we did on Carnival Freedom. It's definitely a more hectic process, I think, because you don't really have the free will just going on and off. You have to wait and wait and wait and wait. But it's really not too bad, honestly. You usually get on, in and off the ship still pretty fast.
The one thing I'll say about tender ports, because I was, did that in the Cayman Islands as well when we went, swimming with the stingrays. The water can be rough and unpredictable. So if you're on a smaller boat, you're more susceptible to, the waves, which, could then cause motion sickness. So if you're prone to that, definitely recommend taking some Dramamine before you get on, or probably afterwards once you've already, consumed a bunch of alcohol, like what happened to me when had to get back on the ship. That was probably one of the worst times I ever had on a cruise ship, especially with me already being prone to motion sickness. That made it a bunch times worse.
Speaking of that, though, Jack, so the motion sickness, have you used anything else other than the Dramamine? Or have you used, have you seen those people, like the pressure bands and stuff like that, and the stuff that goes beyond that? Have you used it? Me, personally, I haven't, because I haven't know if it works at all, but I've heard people say it does work. But I've always stick with the Dramamine. Honestly, I never get motion sickness, but I kind of, pre-do it.
So if you are susceptible, Dramamine's probably the number one thing you can do. They do make these things called C-bands, which is a mesh wristband with a little bit of a pressure point that goes right on your wrist. And what it does is supposed to alleviate that nauseating feeling by just putting that pressure right there. I use it for when I fly, and I usually have to wear the C-bands on the first day of a cruise ship, and usually I do get kind of seasick, especially if it's, rougher waters. But after a day, your body gets used to it, and then you're usually good to go. I know there's people that suffer from extreme motion sickness, which, number one, maybe a cruise isn't for you. But, there are other ways around it, I think. And then something as easy as Pepto-Bismol can, alleviate nausea as well. We kind of talked about this in a previous episode, but it's always good to bring a first aid kit with any kind of medication for allergy, stomach ache, even Advil or Tylenol in case you have a headache or hungover. But let's talk about ship time, Jesse. What does that mean, and why is it important, especially when you are off the ship?
Yeah, so whatever port you originally leave from, so of course, we mainly leave from Galveston because we're from the Houston area. That's going to be your ship time. So it's going to be that time no matter what. The reason that matters is because, say you go to the Eastern Caribbean out of Galveston, you're going to have a 1 to 2 hour time difference. And what happens is your phone is going to adjust to that time. So if you're supposed to be back on board at 4 o'clock and your time adjusted 1 hour ahead, and you say, oh, I still got extra hours, so let me see what I can do. At 3:30, you're like, oh, I still got 30 minutes. Let me see what I can do extra. You're actually late. You're 30 minutes late on board, and they're going to leave without you. And don't think they will, because I've definitely seen people. I don't know if anyone has seen any of the video. Have you seen any of the Pure Runner videos?
I think that's one of my favorite parts about coming back from an excursion or just getting off the boat in general, seeing those people just run and hope they pray they make the ship on time. I think one episode we actually need to break down what happens when you don't get back on the ship, because that's a crazy, crazy process that I don't wish upon anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is a thing that when you do get back on the ship from ports and stuff like that, they will have people up on the top deck, on the Lido deck, watching you or whoever else from Pure Runners, and they just start cheering you on to make sure that you get on the ship. It is kind of funny, I think.
I mean, you're at that point taking bets to see if they make it or not. Some of these, how close they cut it.
Yeah, me personally, I have super high anxiety about getting on. If I'm supposed to be on by 3 or 4, I'm back by 1 at the latest. I just do not want to be late. Because I always think, hey, maybe back from excursion, the guy has a problem with the vehicle that taking you back to the port, and then it might be an hour or 2 delay or something like that. So it's very important to stay on ship time because of that reason.
And also, it's really important that if you do an excursion, to book it through the cruise. That way they have the communication of, hey, this is happening, and they could help you get back on the ship, or God forbid, worst case scenario, get you to the next port and then get back on the ship.
Yeah, absolutely. If you definitely have a high anxiety or a first time cruiser, or you don't even have a lot of experience at that particular port in general, it's definitely recommended just book through a cruise line because they're almost like walking your hand to and from the excursion.
And, kind of bringing up excursions, what is that process like? We kind of went over how to book it. And, there's our excursion exclusive people on ships that can, help you book your excursions. But, is it easier just to book it online before you get there? I'm assuming it's cheaper as well.
Yes, it's definitely better to book the excursion pre boarding the ship because it's definitely, first off, you don't have to worry about it like selling out or anything like that. And also, it's definitely cheaper because once you get on board and you're like, hey, we're not doing anything this day, and you go to the excursion desk, they're definitely going to make that price a lot higher for sure. But anyway, so once you do actually have your booked excursion, I'm talking about through the cruise line itself, is what's going to happen the night before. They're going to give you the tickets, and they're going to have a paper pretty much telling you exactly where to meet up once you get off the ship.
And this is usually left in your mailbox or like it's in your room once you get these tickets, correct?
Exactly. Yeah. Typically, like right outside your room, there's like a little mailbox, I guess you can call it, that they put, like, they also put like the little planner in. They put different things in it, but one of the big things like we're just talking about is the tickets and all the information pretty much. So basically, the next morning they'll say, hey, this is the meeting time on that paper. And so you will go down, get off the ship, make sure you have your sailing sign card they say also you should have a picture ID at all these ports. Just make sure you have a picture ID and sailing sign card, and you'll go to a certain meeting area. The only thing you really need to bring off the ship, unless it's like for the excursion, is just a little bit of cash and stuff for like souvenirs and all that type of stuff. And ID, your room key to your room, and of course, like sunscreen and maybe a hat and all that. Of course, your kids. You can't leave your kids there.
Also, don't leave them with the stingrays, because it's a pain to go back and get them.
Yeah. So Jack, what type of excursions have you done, and what do you feel like is like the best thing you would like for?
I've done snorkeling twice, once in Belize and once in the Cayman Islands. We've done zip lining in Jamaica. I think that was probably my favorite one. And of course, when we go to Cozumel, we usually go to Mr. Sancho's. I mean, that's not exactly a quote excursion, but it's certainly a fun, all-inclusive beach where you can party and have fun. So I think excursions are worth it, especially if you haven't done many cruises. But the more recent cruises I've been on, we haven't done the excursions, which, that's not necessarily a bad thing because you can have fun just hanging out in the ports or, even have a day at the ship with no one else is there. That's a lot of fun. The only thing is you just can't gamble once you're, in port, should I say. But, that kind of brings up another question is, if you don't have an excursion, what would you do, Jesse?
Yeah, so like I said, it definitely depends on what port you're at, too. Some of them, like Costa Maya, actually, which just recently been bought by Royal Caribbean, they're going to be building their private destination there. Which I know didn't talk about, but they just got the approval. May have talked about next episode. They got their approval to continue building the Mexican resort there. But anyways, in Costa Maya, they have many things. Like once you get off the ship, they have a bunch of like little lagoons and all that. Yeah, they're gonna make you buy a drink to use their loungers in the pool, but it is something you can do just hang out around the lagoon. Me personally, they used to have like dolphins and stuff like that, and like birds, and they kind of went away with all that, especially when Royal Caribbean bought it. I'm thinking that they kind of going away with that image because not everyone likes to have dolphins locked up and not be able to see the ocean, even though they're right next to the ocean.
Yeah, it's, and the whole animal cruelty aspect of it. But kind of going to the point of the no excursions, like you said, it just depends. I think you should do an excursion at least once. And, there are certain excursions that are better than others. Like I said, I love the zip lining in the mountains. I 100% recommend that.
And also you can go to, when you go to like the private beaches, like the Celebration Key and the Half Moon Cay that the cruise line owns, those honestly, you can definitely get an excursion on those, but honestly, it's not worth it. I mean, because you got pool, you got bars, you got slides, they usually got entertainment. They got like basketball courts, like different things you can do, or you just hang out by the beach. Look,
I mean, that's what I did at Celebration Key, and I think that was the best aspect of it was just it was a really nice beach, And it just depends on what you're in the mood for. If you're an adventure thrill seeker, definitely do an excursion. If you just want to, hey, get off the ship, relax, go see something a little bit local where you're going. There's nothing wrong with just getting off the ship. Cozumel's a good example. Plenty of nice, authentic Mexican shops that you could shop for, and you can get off the port and then go, to the following port, eat a Margaritaville, which that's a great tradition. There's something for everybody, I'll say, as far as excursions or not excursions.
Yeah, definitely just watch out, because I know, like, in Mexico now, they don't allow vapes. So you're not allowed to wear vapes. And same thing with buying stuff at port. Be careful what you buy at port, especially when you get out, like Cozumel in Mexico. I remember getting out of the port, and they were offering me drugs and stuff like that. And it's definitely, you should say, you can't bring in that stuff back on the ship, because they do have dogs on the ships now.
I mean, I was going to say, what about that Cowboys backpack I bought, in Cozumel? They stopped me and they actually gave me another backpack because no one actually wanted it.
Yeah, I mean, they were about to throw it in the trash.
They didn't want to litter in the ocean. They didn't want to make the ocean worse by throwing the Cowboys in there. What about the different in events on port days and sea days, Jesse?
Yeah, so, of course, when you're at port, believe it or not, that's actually a lot of times when a lot of the people that have been working so hard to make your cruise, good, that is a lot of times when they rest. So they don't really have a lot of stuff going on. They still will have like trivia, but they're not going to have any theater shows, because why would they? Because most of the people are going to be off the ship. Me personally, I'm a big ship person, so if I've been in that port before, I like to stay on the ship, and I love to enjoy the ship all by myself. All the bars are typically still open, so you're still going to be getting all the drinks and the slides. If you want to go on the bar slides, they're just going to be open. So it's definitely less crowded, definitely.
And I do like that aspect of it. I personally like to get off the ship. Sometimes it does make me feel a little claustrophobic, especially if it's a longer, longer cruise. But I also agree with it's nice to be on the ship when no one else is there. Sometimes I actually get off the ship a little bit later. It's my chance to sleep in, and if I don't have any excursions planned, I know I'm just going to go, let's say Cozumel, go to the shops, go eat at one of the local restaurants, or go to there's a favorite little swing bar that's right over the Gulf of Mexico. It's very, very nice. I highly recommend it. It's a nice change of pace to just stay on the ship and enjoy it at the least capacity that you will see it, for the duration of the whole ship. And it's cool because once everyone gets back on board, then that's when the events start. Like the dining, comes back, and then usually some of the better shows are on port days as well. I mean, we've seen, musicals, and they usually save the best shows for the last sea day, like the Love and Marriage show, or I think that there was this one 80s musical that we saw. And, of course, there's comedy acts all throughout the duration of the cruise, and I think the late nights are one of the best times to see the comedy, especially the adults only one.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And another thing is that there's also a difference, because some of the restaurants, like I know on Carnival, like the guys Pick and Anchor will not be open on port days, because I'm guessing it's not busy enough to keep it open. So just think about some restaurants that they might have, they may be closed the whole day. So just definitely look at the planner and look at the hours that they're open to figure out where you want to eat and where you want to do for that day.
Yeah, there's definitely more to do on sea days versus port days, just because you're kind of stuck on the ship with not much else to do. So they want to try to fill it with as many activities as possible. Like sometimes they'll have, ping pong or the foosball tournaments on the top deck. They'll have certain spa discounts where you can come in there and get your couples massages. And they'll have a lot more staffing as far as the pool and water parks go. And, kind of what are some other entertainments differentials between, a sea day and a port day, Jesse?
Yeah, definitely, we kind of mainly what you talked about. Yeah, definitely in the evening when you get back on the ship, it's just going to be normal for sure. But during the day, they're just going to have the basic stuff. They're not going to have, of course, the biggest thing. The casino's going to be closed, of course. So all the people are going to be disappointed, but you never know. I know as soon as 2 hours before it opens, I know people like Maddie are going to be sitting at the casino waiting for it to open to play her Huff and Puff
For those that don't know, Maddie is one of our good friends and one of our loyal listeners, but she does have the gambling problem. She was actually the reason why we went to the casino, not because she had a fishing trip and the casino happened to be there. She was one that said, hey, let's all go to the casino. But, I think it's time we talk about the saddest part of a cruise ship, and that's the disembarkation process. Now, it can be incredibly easy, or it can be, a little bit hectic. We've seen it both ways. The last couple times that we've had to disembark, don't you have to essentially check out, or what's the disembarkation process with that, Jesse, and how do you make it so easy?
Yeah, so typically the night before you disembark the ship, they're going to send something on the app saying fill out this disembarkation. So on the app, they're going to ask if you're going to self-disembark, which means you're going to take the luggage off yourself, or you're going to leave the luggage out the night before, and they'll pick it up, and then they'll set it into the disembarkation terminal, like wherever your home port or wherever you're disembarking. They're going to set it there for you. So after you fill out the information on the app, you go to sleep. You got to be usually what I do is I usually have a late disembarkation, especially if I got a late flight to disembark late, because I want to make sure I can get breakfast before I leave. That's just me. And they usually tell you, hey, you got to be out of your room by like 8, 9 o'clock or something like that. And then usually you go to a place, it's a waiting area after you, of course, cleaned up your whole room. Usually the night before we're throwing stuff and I'm yelling at the kids to pick up their stuff or whatever like that. But you get all your stuff out of your room, make sure it's clean, and then you go down to the area that you're waiting. Usually it's like a lounge area, like the atrium, or I think last time we hung around like the casino area that had like chairs and stuff like that. Yeah, and then they'll usually call a number out, like or number or a time that you're supposed to get off, and then you just make your way to the area that they tell you to get off the ship.
And that's usually over the intercom, correct?
Yeah, intercom, or they also have it on the app. I know for Carnival where it will like pop up in your app like, hey, it's time to get off, and stuff like that. One thing we didn't talk about though is I definitely want to talk about if you bought liquor and stuff like that. So if you did buy liquor on the ship and all that, they will not let you take it back to your room. And usually the morning of, you have to go to a designated place to pick it up that morning of, which makes sense because they don't want you to buy liquor on the ship and then consume it in the whole bottle form when they can sell it to you a lot more expensive. But anyways, yeah, once you start making your way, is might be a little hectic. Sometimes the lines are long. They have to make sure they scan your sell and sign card, and then you just kind of pretty much make your way out, and then you have to go through customs. So this is the time that is definitely the best time to have a passport. Because Jack, did you have a passport?
Yes, I've always had a passport every time I've gone through it, and going through customs is a breeze when you have a passport. But what are the alternatives if you don't have a passport?
So if you don't have a passport, you're going to be waiting in a line to you have to see a custom agent. So he's going to have a paper. He's going to see your birth certificate and make sure that you're actually here legally and all that. And then he's just going to ask you, hey, do you have anything illegal you bring back? Did you bring a liquor back or whatever to make sure?
It's almost like an interrogation process.
Yeah, it kind of is. 99% of the time, they're just going to say, okay, and let you go through. But they do randoms, and they may pull you out of line to search your stuff to make sure that it is safe what you're bringing to the country. But if you have a passport, usually you never stop walking. You walk through. They do this facial recognition nowadays, and as long as you get the green light, you're good, and you get disembark the ship. And then however you get off the ship from there, I know it's hard to get an Uber because usually there's like hundreds of people trying to get an Uber. So it's definitely recommended to either get a rental car ahead of time or schedule someone to pick you up, or pay parking, of course, if you live close enough that you can just drive to the port. Or there is another thing you can do is get a private driver. Some people do get private drivers. It's actually not that much more expensive than getting an Uber. You just kind of have to schedule it with them, and then they'll just pick you up that designated time.
Yeah, which is surprising because when you say private driver, you think of like an ultra elite status people chauffeuring you around. But I mean,
technically, like an Uber driver is like a private driver, right?
Yeah, you're just paying them through an app.
Yeah, you're just pretty much paying them through a third party app that's not as popular as Uber or Lyft. That's basically what you're doing.
And I do like that idea of parking because then you are in control of your own vehicle. Especially like when we went to Cape Canaveral, parking was a breeze, and getting off the ship was incredibly quick. Usually when we go out of Galveston, we have to walk a little bit to the lot in which we parked in. I think there's sometimes a little shuttle that'll take you close enough to your car, but that's always like the easiest route is just to pay for parking. Like you said, Uber hit or miss, Lyft hit or miss. And, I know in the Cape Canaveral, if you are going directly from Cape Canaveral to the airport, they do offer a shuttle. And I think IAH here in Houston International Airport does the same thing as well. Of course, you got to pay for those, but that's another option, especially if you have a flight out. We did mention flights. Like, isn't it possible that you can get an early disembarkation, especially if you do have an earlier flight?
It is definitely not recommended to get a flight before 2:00, because anything before that, you could be getting into port late. Like on Seascape, we got in port 2 hours late because of the weather, and so that slowed everything up. So I remember people talking like, "Hey, my flight's at 11 a.m." I was like, "I don't know why you schedule a flight at 11 a.m. That's just too close and a lot of moving parts, especially from Galveston to IOH isn't close at all. A lot of people don't realize it's over 45 minutes away at least."
Yeah, like when we went to Cape Canaveral, we got everything off in time, but I think our flight was, closer to like 4 or 5 o'clock because we didn't end up back in Houston until late as well. So we did allow ourselves that extra time that we could go get some lunch. We could go hang out in Orlando and then, go leave through MCO.
And one tip I definitely do give everyone is that after you disembark and even maybe on your way home, make a list of stuff that you wish you brought on board, because every time I get off the ship, I'm like, oh, I wish I did this. I wish I brought this. I wish I brought this. So make a notes and almost like a little checklist. So hey, I brought this, this, this. And then I always like to write on those notes like things I did not like or things I didn't want to bring either. So I make sure I don't bring those things again.
Like a pros and cons list, but except in cruising form.
Exactly.
Well, that'll do it for this week's episode of the Lido Loop. As always, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also check out our YouTube channel. We are the Lido Loop. I'm Jack. That's Jesse, and we will see you
on the Lido deck
or in the parking lot, because disembarkation was a breeze.
Thank you for watching this episode of Lido Loop. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you're notified every time we post more content.